My parents' seats were empty. A text claimed urgent business, but their social media showed them laughing at the airport. I accepted my diploma with a frozen smile. Yet the moment I stepped off stage, my phone exploded with 41 missed calls and a chilling email regarding a change of beneficiary. They had abandoned me on my big day, but they were about to learn exactly what it cost to lose me. My name is Nora Harris, and I am standing in a sea of black polyester, surrounded by the nervous energy of 500 other graduates, but the only thing I can focus on is a patch of empty space in Section C. Row 4. I clutched the velvet ropes of the barrier, my knuckles turning white. I had mailed those tickets 3 months ago. I had confirmed the date 2 weeks ago. I had sent a reminder text yesterday. Section C, Row 4, seats 10 through 12. They are prime seats, close enough to see the sweat on the dean's forehead, close enough to hear the individual names being called without the echo of the stadium speakers swallowing them whole. I pulled strings to get those specific seats because I wanted my parents and my sister to see me clearly. I wanted them to see that I made it, that I finished magna cum laude without asking them for a single cent of tuition. But seat 10 is empty. Seat 11 is empty. Seat 12 is empty. Around me, families are already waving wildly. I see a dad standing on a chair with a giant cardboard cutout of his daughter's face. I see a mom crying into a tissue, clutching a bouquet of roses that probably cost $50. The air smells of cheap fabric softener and expensive perfume, a mix of anxiety and triumph. My pocket buzzes against my thigh. I fish my phone out from under the heavy folds of my gown. It is a text from the family group chat. The sender is Mom. Can't make it. Something urgent came up. We will make it up to you later. Love you. I stare at the screen. The brightness is set to 100%, and the words burn into my retinas. Urgent. That is the word they use when the water heater breaks, or when Brielle, my sister, has a meltdown over a bad haircut. Urgent is a flexible word in the Harris household. My thumb hovers over the screen. I do not reply. Instead, I open Instagram. I know I should not do it. I know it is an act of emotional self-harm, but I cannot stop myself. And there it is. The first story on my feed. It was posted 40 minutes ago. The location tag says, O'Hare International Airport. The photo is a selfie, taken at a high angle to capture the best lighting. My mother is smiling, her teeth veneered perfection. My father is looking at his watch, but he has that relaxed, vacation slump to his shoulders, and in the center, wearing oversized sunglasses and a pout that has garnered her 50,000 followers, is Brielle. The caption is written in a curly, cute font. Family Reset Weekend. Sometimes you just have to get away. There are 3 luggage emojis. There is a plane emoji. There is no mention of a graduation. There is no mention of the daughter standing in a gymnasium 2 hours away, wearing a cap that keeps sliding off her forehead. A family reset. They are resetting, and I am the glitch they deleted to make the system run smoother. Nora Harris! The voice booms over the loudspeakers, jarring me back to the physical world. I realize with a jolt that the line has moved. I am at the stairs. The dean is waiting. I have to walk. I step up. My legs feel mechanical, like they belong to someone else. I walk across the stage, and I hear the polite applause of the crowd. My friends in the front row, Sarah, Mike, and Jen, are screaming my name. They are jumping up and down, making enough noise for 10 people. I love them for it. I truly do. But as I reach out to shake the dean's hand and accept the leather-bound folder, I feel like I am enclosed in a layer of cold glass. I smile for the official photographer. Flash. I shake the hand. Smile. Walk. It takes 30 seconds to cross the stage. 30 seconds to validate 4 years of sleepless nights, double shifts at the library, and a diet consisting of 80% instant noodles. I descend the stairs on the other side. The moment my foot touches the concrete floor of the arena, the vibration starts. It is not a text this time. It is a call. I look at the screen. Dad. I reject it. I am not ready to hear his voice. I am not ready to hear the fake apology or the explanation that will inevitably revolve around Brielle's needs. The phone buzzes again immediately. Dad. I reject it again. I make my way back to my seat, but the phone does not stop. It is a relentless, angry buzzing against my leg. One call, then another, then a text, then another call. By the time the ceremony ends and caps are thrown into the air, a tradition I participate in with a limp wrist and zero enthusiasm, my phone is hot to the touch. I navigate through the crushing crowd, dodging hugs and high fives, seeking the exit. I need air. I need silence. I push through the double doors and spill out into the parking lot, the late afternoon sun hitting me like a physical blow. I pull my phone out. The lock screen is a wall of notifications. 41 missed calls. 41. They could not spare 3 hours to drive here to see me graduate, but they have the time to call me 41 times in the span of 20 minutes? A text message from my father sits at the top of the stack. Come home now. Don't ask questions. This is serious. Serious. Not, congratulations. Not, we are sorry. Just a command. I feel a laugh bubbling up in my throat. But it tastes like bile. They are at the airport. They are flying away for a reset weekend. Yet they want me to go home? To what? To water the plants? To bring in the mail? Did Brielle forget her favorite retainer, and they need me to overnight it to whatever beach resort they are fleeing to? I stand by my beat-up sedan, the one I bought with my own money from waiting tables, and I make a choice. I am not calling them back. Not yet. If they can ghost me on one of the most important days of my life, I can ghost them for an hour or two. Let them panic. Let them wonder if I am dead or just indifferent. Let them feel, for just a fraction of a second, the absolute void of silence that I felt when I looked at those 3 empty chairs. I unlock my car and toss my cap into the passenger seat. I am about to throw the phone in after it when a notification dings. It is different from the others. It is not a text, and it is not a missed call. It is an email. I frown. Who sends emails at 5 o'clock on a Saturday? I swipe the screen to open it. The sender is Secure Life Financial Services. My stomach drops. I know that name. I set up a small retirement account with them when I was 18. Back when I landed my first internship, it has almost nothing in it. Maybe $2,000 that I managed to save over the years. I read the subject line. Alert. Confirmation of beneficiary change request. I freeze. The parking lot noise, the car horns, the laughter, the shouting, fades into a dull roar. I open the email. Dear Ms. Harris, this email is to confirm that we have received your request to update the primary beneficiary on your account ending in 492. Please verify this change within 24 hours to finalize the process. If you did not make this request, please contact us immediately. My hands start to shake. I did not make a request. I haven't logged into that account in 6 months. I look at the timestamp of the request. It was made 45 minutes ago, right when I was walking across the stage. Right when my parents were supposedly at the airport. Come home now, my father had texted. Don't ask questions. A cold chill, sharper and deeper than the disappointment of the empty seats, snakes its way down my spine. This isn't about them missing my graduation anymore. This isn't just about them favoring Brielle. Someone is in my accounts. Someone is trying to move things around. And looking at the 41 missed calls, I have a sick, sinking feeling that the urgent matter isn't a family emergency. The emergency is me. Or rather, the emergency is that they need something from me, and they need it before I figure out what they have done. I sat in the driver's seat of my 10-year-old sedan, the leather cracking under my thighs, and stared at the dashboard. The heat of the day was turning the car into an oven, but I did not roll down the windows. I needed the containment. I needed to feel the physical pressure of the air to match the pressure building inside my chest. It was funny, in a dark, twisted way. I had spent my entire life trying to be low maintenance. I was the good one, the easy one, the child who did not need to be reminded to do her homework, the teenager who never missed curfew, the young woman who filed her taxes early. I was the human equivalent of a reliable sedan, functional, unnoticed, and expected to run without oil changes. Then there was Brielle. If I was a sedan, Brielle was a sports car with no brakes, careening down a highway while streaming the whole disaster on TikTok. I closed my eyes and the memories came, not as a flood, but as a slideshow of quiet rejections. I remembered coming home in 7th grade with a perfect report card, the edges crisp and unbent. I had placed it on the kitchen island, waiting. My mother had glanced at it while chopping vegetables and said, "That is nice, Nora. Put it in the drawer." 10 minutes later, Brielle had walked in, crying because a girl at dance class had said her leotard was ugly. The entire evening became about Brielle. My father took us out for ice cream to cheer her up. My mother spent an hour braiding Brielle's hair. My report card stayed on the counter until it got stained with tomato sauce, and then I threw it away myself. It was not that they did not love me. They did. In the way you love a sturdy piece of furniture, you appreciate that it holds your weight. But you do not take photos of it. You do not celebrate it. Brielle, on the other hand, demanded an audience. When she started her social media channels 3 years ago, the house transformed into her personal studio. My parents became her production assistants. Dad bought the ring lights. Mom held the camera. When Brielle hit 10,000 followers, we went to a steakhouse. When she hit 100,000, they bought her a designer bag that cost more than my first car. She is building a brand. Nora. My father had told me when I asked why he paid her credit card bill, but told me I had to cover my own textbooks. It is an investment. You are smart. You can figure out scholarships. So I did. I figured out scholarships. I figured out grants. I figured out that if I worked the opening shift at the campus coffee shop from 4 in the morning until 8, I could get free food and make enough to cover my rent. I became obsessed with numbers because numbers were the only things in my life that were fair. 1 + 1 always equaled 2. Input equaled output. I opened the glove box and pulled out a small, spiraled notebook. It was a habit I had started when I was 16. I recorded everything, every coffee, every tank of gas, every paycheck. It was my way of proving that I existed, that I was taking up space in the world, even if my family looked right through me. I flipped to the last page. Graduation robe, $60. Cap and tassel, $35. Honors cords, $20. I had paid for all of it. I had let myself believe that today would be the exception to the rule. Graduation was universal. It was the one milestone that required physical presence. It was the finish line of a marathon I had run entirely alone, carrying my own water, binding my own blisters. I thought, surely, they would pause the Brielle show for 3 hours to watch me cross it. But looking at that Instagram story again, the truth settled in my gut like a stone. Family reset weekend. The caption was a lie. This was not a reset. This was a rescue mission. I knew the signs. Brielle had probably had a crisis. Maybe her engagement metrics were down. Maybe a brand deal fell through. Maybe she just felt overwhelmed by the weight of her own ego, and like trained first responders, my parents had dropped everything, including me, to rush to her side. They did not just miss my graduation. They chose to miss it. They looked at the calendar, saw Nora's graduation on one side and Brielle's mood swing on the other, and the scale did not even tremble. They picked her. They always picked her. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My makeup was still perfect, sealed with setting spray I had bought specifically for this day because I thought I would be crying happy tears. My eyes were dry. They looked hard. "I am done," I whispered to the empty car. It was not a scream. It was a statement of fact, as cold and unyielding as the concrete beneath my tires. I was done being the backup plan. I was done being the emotional retirement fund they hoped to cash in on when Brielle inevitably burned herself out. I was done auditioning for a role in a family that had already cast me as an extra. My gaze drifted down to the passenger seat, where my phone lay next to the graduation cap. The screen was dark, but I knew the email from Secure Life Financial Services was waiting there. That email was the spark. If they had just ignored me, I might have simply walked away. I might have moved to a different city and slowly let the calls fade into monthly texts. But they did not just ignore me. The timestamp on that beneficiary change request was 4:30 in the afternoon, while I was fixing my tassel. Someone was trying to access my retirement fund while I was walking up the stairs to the stage. Someone was trying to erase my future security. And considering my parents were the only people who had ever had access to my old personal data, the list of suspects was a circle of 3. I picked up the phone. The fear I had felt earlier was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I was the girl who tracked every penny. I was the girl who read the terms and conditions. I was the girl who had to be twice as sharp because nobody was there to catch me if I fell. They thought I was the safe one, the quiet one. The one who would come home when summoned because she was desperate for a crumb of affection. They were about to find out that stable is just another word for unmovable. And I was about to become the biggest obstacle they had ever faced. I started the car. The engine roared to life, a rough, angry sound. I wasn't going home to apologize. I wasn't going home to beg. I was going home to investigate. And if they had touched a single cent of the money I had scrubbed tables to earn, the reset weekend was going to turn into a permanent disconnection. The drive back to my apartment is a blur of red taillights and white noise. I do not play music. I do not listen to a podcast. I need the silence to organize the chaos in my head into neat, manageable rows. When I finally unlock my front door, I strip off the graduation gown and let it pool on the floor like a black puddle. I do not hang it up. I do not care about the wrinkles. I sit at my desk, the cheap laminate surface cool against my forearms, and open my laptop. The phone is still buzzing on the bed where I tossed it, vibrating against the mattress like a trapped insect, but I ignore it. I have a different priority. I pull up the email from Secure Life Financial Services again. On the larger screen, the threat looks even more official. It is a standard form letter, sterilized of all emotion, which makes it terrifying. Action required. Verify beneficiary change for policy number ending in 492. If no action is taken within 24 hours, the request will be automatically processed as valid. 24 hours. The time limit is not a coincidence. It is a calculation. It is Saturday. Banks are closed. Customer service lines are skeleton crews. By Monday morning, when the business world wakes up, the change would already be cemented in the system. I pick up my landline, a relic I kept specifically for moments when my cell phone reception failed, and dial the support number at the bottom of the email. The hold music is a tinny, repetitive jazz loop. I wait for 12 minutes. I stare at the wall, counting the seconds. 720 seconds. Finally, a human voice clicks on. Thank you for calling Secure Life. This is Marcus. How can I help you? I received a security alert regarding a beneficiary change I did not authorize, I say. My voice is steady, almost robotic. I am not a panicked daughter. I am a client protecting her assets. I need to know how this request was initiated. One moment. Please, let me pull up your account. I hear the clatter of typing. Okay, Ms. Harris, I see the request here. It was submitted about an hour ago via the online portal. I did not submit it, I repeat. How did they get in? I have a strong password. Well, Marcus says, his voice hesitant. It looks like the login came from a trusted device. When a device is marked as trusted, it bypasses the standard two-step verification for faster access. A trusted device. The words unlock a memory I had buried deep under years of independence. I was 18 years old, preparing to move into the dorms for my freshman year. My mother had sat me down at the kitchen table, a stack of folders between us. You are going to be so busy, Nora, she had said, her voice dripping with that cloying, performative concern. Let me keep a copy of your login details for the important stuff, insurance, bank accounts, just in case you lose your phone or get locked out. You know how you get with paperwork. We just want you to be safe. I had believed her. I had written down my passwords on a yellow legal pad. I had watched her tuck it into the family safe, thinking she was my safety net. "Can you see the device model?" I ask Marcus. "It is listed as a desktop PC running Windows 10, using the Chrome browser." My stomach turns over. That is the family computer, the one that sits in the den, right next to the shelves where my father displays his golf trophies and where there are 0 photos of my graduation. "Is there an IP address?" I ask. "Yes, ma'am. I can see the IP log." "Read it to me, please." He reads off a string of numbers. I type them into a geolocation tool in a separate tab. The map loads instantly. The red pin drops right in the middle of Oak Creek, the suburb where my parents live. It is not an exact address, but it is within a 2-mile radius of their house. It wasn't a hacker from overseas. It wasn't a glitch. My mother, or perhaps my father acting on her instructions, had dug that old yellow legal paper out of the safe. They had sat at the computer, logged into my account using the credentials I gave them in trust, and tried to redirect my money to someone else. "Cancel the request," I say. The coldness in my voice surprises even me. "Cancel it immediately. And Marcus, I need you to remove all trusted devices from the account. Every single one." "Done," he says. "I have also triggered a password reset. You will need to create a new one right now." I stay on the line while I overhaul my security. I create a password that is 20 characters long, a nonsense string of letters and symbols that no one could guess. I set up 2-factor authentication to ping my phone, and only my phone. "Is there anything else?" Marcus asks. "Yes, send me the full access log, every login, every change attempt, with timestamps and IP addresses. Send it as a PDF to my email." "I can do that. It should arrive in 5 minutes." I hang up. The apartment feels different now. It is no longer a sanctuary. It is a command center. I look at the time. It is 5:30 in the afternoon. The text from my father, "Come home now. Don't ask questions," takes on a sinister new light. They did not want me home because they missed me. They did not want me home because of an emergency. They wanted me in the car. If I was driving, I would not be checking my email. If I was driving, I would not see the notification from Secure Life until it was too late, or until I was physically in their house where they could manipulate me, guilt me, or talk over me until I agreed to whatever scheme they had cooked up. The urgent trip to the airport was likely a ruse, or maybe they really did go, thinking they could manage the theft remotely while I was distracted by the heartbreak of their absence. They counted on me being sad. They counted on me being the weeping, rejected daughter who would drive home at breakneck speed just to beg for an explanation. They forgot that I am also the daughter who balances her checkbook to the penny every Friday night. I do not feel sad anymore. The grief has evaporated, replaced by a hard, crystallized anger. I pick up my cell phone. 43 missed calls now. I do not call back. I do not give them the satisfaction of hearing my voice shake. I do not give them the opportunity to spin a lie. I open the camera app and take a screenshot of the email from Secure Life. I take a screenshot of the geolocation map. I wait for Marcus's email to arrive, and when it does, I download the PDF and save it to 3 different folders, one on my laptop, one on an external hard drive, and one in a cloud account they do not know exists. Evidence first, feelings later. My thumb hovers over my father's text thread. I need to buy time. I need to keep them in the dark about what I know until I understand the full scope of what they are doing. If I confront them now, they will scrub the computer. They will shred the paper. They will gaslight me and say I'm crazy. I type 6 words. Busy. Send reason. Will reply later. I hit send. Then, I power the phone down completely. I watch the screen go black. The buzzing stops. The connection is severed. For the first time in my life, I am not running to them. I am making them wait. And in that silence, I hope they begin to feel the first tremble of the ground shifting beneath their feet. They wanted my attention. They have it, but they are not going to like what I do with it. I took a deep breath, the kind that fills your lungs until they press against your ribs, and held it for a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, I picked up the phone from the desk. It felt heavy, like a loaded weapon. I pressed the power button. The screen lit up, the Apple logo glowing white in the dim room. It took 30 seconds to boot up. As soon as the cellular signal bars solidified in the top right corner, the device began to spasm. Messages flooded in. Voicemail notifications stacked up like bricks. And then, before I could even swipe to unlock it, the screen changed. FaceTime request. Dad. I did not hesitate this time. I swiped the green button and propped the phone against my laptop screen. I wanted my hands free. I wanted them to see me sitting there, still wearing the black dress I had worn under my gown, calm and unmoving. My father's face filled the screen. He was holding the phone too close, the camera angle unflattering, distorting his jawline. Behind him, I could see the blurred shapes of people walking by and the distinct, sterile lighting of an airport terminal. He looked sweaty, his tie was loosened, and his hair, usually gelled into submission, was a mess. "Where are you?" he barked. There was no, "Hello." There was no, "Congratulations." There was no, "I am so sorry we missed the biggest moment of your life." Just an accusation. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "I am at my apartment," I said. "I just got back from the ceremony, you know, the one you were supposed to be at." He waved his hand dismissively, as if swatting away a fly. "We don't have time for guilt trips. Nora, this is a crisis. We are stuck at O'Hare. We can't get a flight out until tomorrow morning unless we pay a fortune, and we can't pay a fortune because you are on a family reset weekend?" I interrupted, my voice flat. He froze. His eyes darted to the side, likely looking at my mother. Then the camera shifted. My mother shoved her face into the frame. Pushing my father aside, she was wearing her concern mask. It was a look I knew well. It involved widening her eyes and pitching her voice up an octave to sound sweet and helpless. "Nora, honey," she said, breathless, "please don't be like this. We intended to be there, really, but something terrible has happened. We need you to come home, or at least, we need you to be ready to help us right now." "What happened?" I asked. "Did someone get hurt? Is someone in the hospital?" No, nothing like that," she said quickly. "It is complicated." "What is more important than my graduation?" I asked. I kept my voice low, but I made sure every syllable landed. "I walked across that stage alone. Mom, so tell me, what was worth that?" "It is Brielle." The voice came from the background, shrill and panicked. My mother turned the phone, and there was my sister. She was sitting on a sleek airport lounge chair, her knees pulled up to her chest. She looked like a wreck. Her mascara was running, and she was aggressively typing on her phone with one hand while clutching a Starbucks cup with the other. "My cards are locked! Nora!" Brielle wailed, looking at the camera. "Everything is frozen. My business account, my personal credit, everything. I have a brand deal with a skincare line that is supposed to launch in 48 hours, and I can't pay the vendor for the launch party setup. If I lose this venue, I lose the contract. If I lose the contract, I get sued for breach. They are talking about ruining my reputation." I stared at her. A brand deal. A party venue. "That is the emergency?" I asked. "You missed my graduation because Brielle's credit card got declined?" "It is not just a decline," Brielle snapped. "It is a hold. Dad tried to cover it, but his cards triggered a fraud alert because of the amount. We are stuck here with no liquidity." My father's face came back into view. He looked serious now, the way he used to look when he lectured me about being responsible with my allowance. "Listen to me, Nora," he said. "This is a domino effect. If Brielle defaults on this venue payment tonight, the contract is void. The penalties are massive. We are talking $20,000 in immediate fees, plus the loss of future revenue. It could bankrupt her LLC." "Okay," I said. "So what does that have to do with me?" I knew the answer. I felt it coming like a train on a track I had built myself. "We need a guarantor," Dad said. We spoke to the vendor. They said they will accept a co-signature from a party with a credit score over 750 and proof of stable income. They need a wire transfer guarantee by midnight. He looked at me with an expectation that made my skin crawl. He didn't ask. He just presented the solution. You have the job at the accounting firm starting next month, he continued. You have never missed a payment on anything. Your credit is perfect. We just need you to sign the digital guarantee. It is just a formality. Nora, we will pay it back before the bill even hits. You want me to co-sign a $20,000 debt, I repeated. It is not debt, Mom chimed in, her voice trembling. It is an investment in your sister's future. She is going to be huge. Nora, you know that. She just needs a bridge. I looked at the three of them. A tableau of selfishness squeezed into a 5-inch screen. They didn't need me. They didn't need Nora. The daughter. They needed Nora. The credit score. They needed Nora. The liability shield. And suddenly, the email from Secure Life made perfect sense. They had probably tried to drain my small retirement account first, when they realized they couldn't get the cash fast enough, or when the system flagged it. They moved to Plan B. Make me sign for it willingly. The audacity was breathtaking. It was almost impressive. Nora, Dad pressed. Did you hear me? I am sending you the link now. Just click. Sign via DocuSign and upload a screenshot of your offer letter from the firm. I looked at the little green light of my camera. Send me the full contract, I said. The silence on the other end was instant. What? Dad asked. Send me the full document, I said. The contract with the venue, the contract with the skincare brand, and the terms of the guarantee you want me to sign. I want to read them. Read them? Mom's voice dropped the sweetness. It became sharp. Nora, we don't have time for you to play lawyer. It is midnight. We are family. We are family, I echoed. Which is why you should have no problem showing me what I am signing. You don't trust us? Brielle shouted from the background. I am your sister. You are going to let my career die because you want to read the fine print? Yes, I said. My father's face turned a shade of red I recognized. It was the color of his temper. Nora, stop this nonsense. You are being petty because we missed the ceremony. Grow up. This is real life. This is money. Sign the document. I am grown up, I said calmly. That is why I read before I sign. If you want my credit, you play by my rules. Send the documents to my email, the one you don't have the password to. I saw the flicker of recognition in my mother's eyes. She knew. She knew I knew about the breach. How dare you, she hissed. After everything we have done for you, we put a roof over your head. We fed you. And I am grateful, I said. But gratitude is not a blank check. If you want me to take on $20,000 of risk, I need to see the liability clauses. Family needs clarity more than anyone else. Nora, if you hang up, Dad started, pointing a finger at the camera. Send the email. Dad, I said. I didn't wait for his response. I didn't wait for Brielle's next scream or Mom's next guilt trip. I reached out and tapped the red button. The screen went black. The room went silent. I sat there for a moment, staring at my own reflection in the dark glass of the phone. My heart was beating hard, thumping against my ribs like a trapped bird. But my hands were perfectly still. I looked at my fingers. No tremors. I had just hung up on my father. I had just denied my mother. I had just ignored my sister's tears. And the world hadn't ended. The ceiling hadn't collapsed. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding since I was 10 years old. Okay, I whispered. Let's see what you send me. I turned back to my laptop. I had a feeling the documents, if they even sent them, would be a mess, and I was ready to tear them apart, line by line. They wanted a professional? They were about to get one. I did not go to sleep. Sleep was a luxury for people who were not currently being hunted by their own blood relatives. Instead, I brewed a pot of coffee, black and bitter, and turned my small apartment into a war room. My first move was to call a contact I had made during my internship at a corporate law firm. I will call him The advisor. He was a shark in a three-piece suit who billed $800 an hour. But he owed me a favor for catching a rounding error in a merger agreement that would have cost his client millions. "It is Saturday night, Nora," he answered on the second ring, his voice gravelly. "You are supposed to be celebrating." "I am celebrating," I said, putting the phone on speaker as I opened my laptop. "I am celebrating the discovery that my signature is apparently the most valuable asset in the Harris family portfolio. I need to ask you about joint and several liability clauses in commercial vendor contracts." I heard the shift in his tone immediately. The tiredness vanished, replaced by professional sharpness. "Who is the counterparty?" "A high-end event venue and a skincare brand. My sister is the primary, but they are demanding a guarantor with a credit score over 750. Me." "Do not sign it," he said. It was not advice. It was an order. "If the contract has a standard indemnity clause, you are not just backing her up, you are becoming the primary target if she misses a payment. They won't even bother chasing her. They will come straight for the person with the steady paycheck. They can garnish your wages, Nora. They can put a lien on your future assets." "I figured," I said, typing furiously. "What is the best way to protect myself proactively, aside from saying no?" "Paper trail," he said. "Force them to disclose the full financial picture in writing. If they omit existing debts to induce you to sign, that is fraud. It gives you leverage to void any implied verbal agreements later. And lock your credit files. Now." "Thanks," I said. "I owe you a drink. You owe me a retainer if this goes south. Be careful. Nora." I hung up and immediately went to work on the credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, one by one. I logged in and placed a security freeze on my files. It was a satisfying series of clicks. Freeze, freeze, freeze. I also set up a fraud alert that required a phone call to my personal cell number before any new line of credit could be opened. It felt like I was pulling up the drawbridge and filling the moat with crocodiles. Then, I opened my email. My father had finally sent the dossier. The subject line was simply, "Documents, sign ASAP." I downloaded the attachment. It was a mess. It looked like he had taken photos of the pages with his phone under bad lighting and converted them into a PDF. Some pages were crooked. Others were blurry. It was sloppy. Desperate work. It was the kind of paperwork you throw at someone when you expect them to just glance at the signature line and obey. But I did not glance. I read. I zoomed in to 200%. I read the definitions. I read the clauses in size 8 font. And there it was, buried on page 14 of the venue contract. Clause 12.4. The guarantor agrees to waive all rights to require the creditor to proceed against the principal debtor before proceeding against the guarantor. I felt a cold smile touch my lips. The advisor was right. They weren't asking me to help. They were asking me to take the bullet. If Brielle decided she didn't want to pay, or if her brand deal evaporated, the venue wouldn't even have to send her a letter. They could just sue me. I kept reading. The numbers didn't add up. The total amount due was listed as $25,000, but the itemized list only accounted for $18,000. $7,000 was missing from the breakdown. It was labeled simply as outstanding arrears. Arrears, that meant past debt. Brielle wasn't just trying to book a venue for a future event. She was trying to pay off a debt she had already incurred. I needed to know more. I picked up my phone again. It was late, but the event industry never sleeps. I scrolled through my contacts until I found a guy I had taken a finance class with. He was working as a junior account manager for one of the biggest commercial leasing firms in the city, the kind of firm that owned half the warehouses and event spaces in the district. "Nora?" He sounded surprised. "Congrats on graduating. Did you survive the ceremony?" "Barely," I said. "Listen, I have a weird question. You guys handle leasing for the convention district, right?" "Yeah, mostly. Why?" "Have you ever dealt with a Brielle Lyant Events or a Brielle Harris? She is trying to secure a space for a launch party, and I am helping her look over the books." There was a long pause. "Nora, you are helping her?" What does that mean? It means, he lowered his voice, that name is flagged in our internal system. She tried to rent a studio space from us 3 months ago. The check bounced, twice, and it wasn't just the rent. She ordered a custom lighting rig and never paid the vendor. The word on the street is that she is over-leveraged. She is using deposits from new clients to pay off old vendors. It is a house of cards. I thanked him and hung up. My hand was shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of the betrayal. It wasn't just a cash flow issue because of a locked card. It was a Ponzi scheme. My sister was drowning in debt, and my parents were trying to throw me into the water to keep her afloat for 5 more minutes. Suddenly, the email from Secure Life, the attempt to change the beneficiary on my retirement account, clicked into place like the final piece of a puzzle. They needed cash, immediate, liquid cash, $7,000 for the arrears to unlock the venue so that I could sign for the remaining $25,000. They had tried to steal my retirement money to pay the back rent, hoping I wouldn't notice until it was too late. When that failed, they tried to bully me into signing the guarantee blindly. They were panicked. They were desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. I looked at the clock. It was almost 2 a.m. I opened a new email draft. I could have just said no. I could have blocked them all and gone to sleep, but that would not stop them. They would find another way, or they would forge my signature, or they would guilt-trip me for the rest of my life about how I ruined the family. No, I needed to end this. I needed to make them admit it. I typed a reply to my father. Dad, I have reviewed the documents. I see the urgency. However, the numbers on page 14 do not match the total requested. There is a discrepancy of $7,000 labeled as arrears before I can consider signing any guarantee. I need a full, written explanation of what this debt consists of. I also need you to confirm, in this email thread, that there are no other outstanding debts associated with this entity. My firm requires full disclosure for any external liability I take on. If you can clarify this discrepancy and confirm the solvency of the project in writing, I will review the signature page immediately. Nora, I pressed send. It was a beautiful trap. If they told the truth, that the money was for past overdue bills, I would have written proof that the project was already in default, which would justify my refusal to any sane person. If they lied, if they said it was just a fee or a deposit, then they would be committing fraud. And since I already knew the truth thanks to my friend in leasing, that lie would be the nail in the coffin. I sat back and watched the screen, waiting for the inevitable ping. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the auditor, and the audit had just begun. The invitation arrived on Sunday morning, landing in my inbox with a chime that sounded far too cheerful for the context. It was from my mother. The subject line read, "Graduation celebration dinner, tonight at 7. There was no mention of the airport panic, no mention of the frantic calls or the demand for immediate cash. It was as if the last 48 hours had been wiped from the server, replaced by a fresh, clean operating system where we were a normal, happy family. We want to make it up to you, the text in the email said. Roast chicken, your favorite, just us. Please come. We are so proud of you. I stared at the screen. A day ago, I was an emergency contact. Now, I was the guest of honor. The whiplash was calculated. They realized that bullying me hadn't worked, so they were pivoting to the oldest tactic in the book, love bombing. I did not dress up. I wore jeans and a dark button-down shirt, the kind of clothes you wear when you need to be taken seriously, not admired. But my most important accessory wasn't my outfit. It was a thick, beige folder tucked under my arm. Inside were the printed screenshots of the access logs from Secure Life, the map showing the login from their house, and the time-stamped emails where I had asked for clarification on the debt and received nothing but silence. I drove to the house in silence. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Brielle's car parked crookedly, taking up 2 spaces. It was fitting. She took up 2 spaces in every room she entered. My mother opened the door before I could even knock. She was wearing an apron over a nice dress, her hair perfectly coiffed. She pulled me into a hug that felt like a vice. "Nora, you're here!" she exclaimed, squeezing me tight. She smelled of rosemary and expensive perfume. "We were so worried you wouldn't come." "I am here," I said, keeping my arms stiff at my sides. She pulled back, her smile wavering for a fraction of a second before reattaching itself. Come in. Dad is pouring wine." The house looked immaculate. The dining table was set with the good china, the plates with the gold rims that were usually reserved for Christmas or visits from the bishop. In the center of the table, a roast chicken sat golden and glistening, surrounded by roasted vegetables. It was a tableau of domestic perfection, designed to make me feel safe, designed to make me feel like a daughter. Dad was standing by the sideboard. He turned and raised a glass. "To the graduate," he said, his voice booming with forced conviviality. "Better late than never, right?" "Right," I said. I placed my folder on the table, right next to my placemat. They all looked at it. Brielle, who was sitting across from me, narrowed her eyes. She looked less like a wreck today and more like a sulking teenager, dressed in a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "What is that?" Brielle asked, pointing a manicured nail at the folder. "Just some work," I said. "I like to be prepared." We sat down. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Dad carved the chicken, his knife scraping against the platter with a sound that set my teeth on edge. Mom ladled potatoes onto my plate, piling them high. "So," Dad started, pouring gravy, "we are sorry about the mix-up yesterday. The airport was a nightmare, but we are here now. And honestly, Nora, looking at you, we realized something." "Here it comes," I thought, the script. "We realized how grown up you are," Mom chimed in. She reached across the table and patted my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't return the gesture. "You handled everything so well. You have always been the strong one, the rock." "Brielle is so creative," Dad added, nodding at my sister. "She is an artist, but you, Nora, you have a head for the real world. You understand how things work." I cut a piece of chicken. "I do," I said. "I understand exactly how things work." Brielle let out a dramatic sigh. She pushed her food around her plate. "I feel so terrible," she whispered. "I ruined your weekend. I'm under so much pressure. You don't know what it is like. Nora, the industry is brutal. One mistake and you are canceled. If I lose this venue, my career is over before it even starts." She looked up at me, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. It was a good performance. Solid B+. "We just want to help her," Dad said, leaning forward. "And we figured, since you are starting this great job, and you have no debt, you are in the perfect position to be the hero here." "The hero," I repeated. "Exactly," Mom said. "It is just a signature. Honey, we did the math. If you sign as the guarantor, the venue releases the hold. We will pay off the balance in installments. You won't have to pay a dime. We just need your credibility." "Installments," I said. "What is the schedule?" "Well," Dad waved a hand, "we are working that out. Once the brand deal money hits, we will clear a big chunk. Maybe 3 months? 4? "Do you have that in writing?" I asked. "The repayment schedule? And the confirmation from the brand that the deal is actually signed?" "Nora," Mom said, her voice dipping into a hurt tone. "Why are you being so transactional? We are your family. We are sitting here having dinner. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It means you made chicken," I said. "It doesn't mean the math works." I took a sip of water. The room was silent, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. It was time. "Speaking of transactions," I said, keeping my voice level and calm, "I have a question." They all looked at me. "Who logged into my Secure Life account on Saturday afternoon?" The reaction was instantaneous and telling. Brielle looked confused. She genuinely didn't know what I was talking about, which confirmed my suspicion that she was just the catalyst, Not the mastermind of that particular crime, but my parents? They froze. My father's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. My mother blinked rapidly, her gaze darting to the folder on the table, then to my face, then to the centerpiece. "Your what?" Dad asked. His voice was too loud. "My retirement account," I said. "My secure life portal. Someone used the old family desktop, the one in the den, to log in and attempt to change the beneficiary. It happened while I was at the ceremony. While you were supposedly at the airport." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. It stretched for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, then Mom laughed. It was a brittle, nervous sound. "Oh, Nora," she said, waving her napkin. "You are imagining things. Maybe it was an old glitch? You know how that computer is. It probably just reconnected or something." "A glitch doesn't type in a new beneficiary name," I said. "A glitch doesn't try to bypass two-factor authentication." "You are being paranoid," Dad said, setting his fork down with a clatter. "Why would we touch your little account? We are talking about big business here. Nora, don't change the subject." "I am not changing the subject," I said. "I am establishing trust. You want me to sign a legal document that puts my financial future on the line. But I have an access log in this folder that suggests someone in this house tried to rob me 48 hours ago." I tapped the beige folder. The sound was soft, but it echoed like a gunshot. "That is ridiculous," Mom said, her face flushing pink. "I don't know what you think you saw, but you are mistaken. We were panicking about your sister. We weren't looking at your whatever it is." She was lying. I knew she was lying. She knew I knew she was lying. But I didn't push. Not yet. I watched them squirm. I saw the sweat beading on Dad's upper lip. I saw the way Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her wine glass. They were terrified. They realized I wasn't the little girl who did her homework quietly anymore. I was a threat, and because they were terrified, they were desperate for a way out. I decided to give them one. A trap door that led straight to a cage. I softened my expression. I let my shoulders drop. I took a deep breath, feigning exhaustion. "Okay," I said. "Maybe it was a glitch. I will have the IT guys look into it again." I saw the tension drain out of their bodies. Mom actually exhaled audibly. Dad picked up his fork again. "Exactly," Dad said. "Technology is weird. Let's focus on the solution." "Here is the thing," I said. "I can't sign anything tonight. My legal advisor, won't let me." "You have a legal advisor?" Brielle asked, her eyes wide. "I do," I lied. "And he says I can't put my name on anything unless I see the full, unredacted contract, the one with all the terms, the interest rates, and the penalties. If you send me that, the real version, not the one you sent last night, I will bring it to him tomorrow. If he says it is clean, I will consider it." "You will?" Mom asked, hope blooming on her face like a fungus. "I will consider it," I repeated, "but I need the full documentation. Tonight, by email." "Done," Dad said immediately. "I will forward the whole packet right after dinner. It is standard stuff. Nora, your advisor will see that." He was smiling now. He thought he had won. He thought I was just being bureaucratic, just needing a little reassurance before I fell back in line. He thought that by agreeing to consider it, I was already halfway to yes. He didn't realize that I wasn't asking for the contract so I could sign it. I was asking for the contract because I needed proof of the debt. I needed to see exactly how deep the hole was, and I needed them to send it to me voluntarily. Once I had the full contract, I would see the arrears. I would see the default notices they were undoubtedly hiding in the appendices. And most importantly, by sending it to me, they would be handing me the ammunition I needed to blow their entire scheme apart. "Great," I said, picking up my fork. "Then let's eat. This chicken looks delicious." I took a bite. It tasted like victory. They were so relieved to have managed me that they were about to get sloppy. They were going to send me everything I needed to destroy them. And they were going to do it with a smile. thinking they had just saved their weekend. I chewed slowly, watching them relax, watching them toast to family. I smiled back. It was the last genuine smile they would get from me for a very long time. The silence in my apartment after the dinner felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. I had left my parents' house with a stomach full of roast chicken and a briefcase full of lies. But for a few hours, the ceasefire had seemed real. I sat on my couch, the laptop open on the coffee table, waiting for the email they had promised, the full contract that would supposedly explain everything. It was 1:47 in the morning when my phone lit up. It was not the email from my father. It was a push notification from the credit monitoring app I had installed only 24 hours ago. The banner was red, a stark contrast to the dark room. Alert. New inquiry. Blocked. An attempt to open a quick cash personal loan was made using your social security number. Because your file is frozen, this application was automatically rejected. I stared at the screen, my breath catching in my throat. They had not waited. They had not even waited for me to get home and review the documents, while my mother was hugging me at the door, while my father was pouring wine and talking about how proud he was. They had another plan running in the background. The dinner was not a peace offering, it was a distraction. They thought that if they softened me up with food and compliments, I would lower my guard, and while I was driving home, thinking I had outsmarted them. They had tried to bypass me entirely, a quick cash loan, the kind with predatory interest rates and instant approval, designed for desperate people who need money within 24 hours. My hands did not shake this time. Instead, a cold, clinical rage settled over me. They were not just desperate, they were relentless. They were trying to take a shortcut through my financial life because they knew they could not get through the front door. I opened my laptop and composed a new email. I did not address it to Dad this time. I addressed it to both of them, copying Brielle just so she could watch the house burn down. To Mom, Dad. Subject: immediate confirmation required. I just received a notification that a loan application was submitted in my name 5 minutes ago. Since my credit is frozen, it was blocked. I am requiring you to reply to this email immediately with a written statement confirming that you do not have access to, nor have you attempted to access, any of my personal banking, credit, or identity verification accounts. A non-answer will be considered an admission of guilt. Nora. I tapped send. I expected silence. It was nearly 2 in the morning, but the reply came 3 minutes later. It was from Mom, Nora. Honey, why are you being so aggressive? We are all tired. We can talk about technical glitches in the morning. You are letting this stress get to your head. We are a family. We would never hurt you. I read the email twice. She did not say no. She did not say, we did not do it. She deflected. She used emotional language, family, hurt, stress, to cloud the fact that she refused to type the words, I did not access your account. In the world of law and logic, an evasion is as good as a confession. I did not reply. I did not need to. I had what I needed. I spent the next hour turning my living room into a forensic lab. I printed the credit alert. I printed Mom's evasive email. I took screenshots of the call logs from graduation day. The 41 missed calls that now looked less like panic and more like harassment. I went to Instagram and screen recorded Brielle's entire story feed from the weekend. The airport selfies, the champagne toasts, the reset weekend captions. I needed to prove that while they were claiming a crisis to me, they were projecting opulence to the world. Then, I picked up the phone. I called the customer service line for the lending platform that had generated the alert. It was a 24-hour automated system, but I pressed 0 until I got a human being. This is the fraud department, a tired voice answered. Name and case number? I don't have a case number yet, I said. My name is Nora Harris. An application was just blocked on my file. I need to know what contact information was used on the application. I can't give out full details for privacy reasons, the agent said. I am the applicant, I said, my voice sharp. I can verify my social, my address, my date of birth. But I need to know if the email address on that application matches mine, because if it doesn't, we are looking at identity theft, and I will be filing a police report within the hour. I need this for the report. The mention of the police report greased the wheels. Okay, Ms. Harris, let me verify you first. We went through the security questions. Once I cleared them, the agent sighed. The application was submitted online. The email address used for verification was harrisfamilymanagement@gmail.com, and the phone number associated with the two-step verification ended in 8842. My blood ran cold. Harris Family Management, that was the shared email address my parents used for bills. And 8842? That was my mother's cell phone number. It wasn't a hacker. It wasn't a mistake. It was Mom. Thank you, I said. Please mark that application as fraudulent and flag the IP address. I hung up. I sat back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. How did they think they would get away with it? Did they think I wouldn't notice a loan in my name? Or did they think that once the money was in their account, they could just guilt me into paying it off, like they had done with everything else? But wait, I whispered to myself. How did they get past the initial screen? They would need more than just my social. They would need... I stopped. I remembered something. Something from years ago. When I was 18. Just before I left for college. My mother had insisted on organizing my paperwork. She had set up my first checking account. She had helped me file my first tax return. I will just put my number down as a backup, she had said. In case you lose your phone at a party, you know how you are. I had forgotten about it. I had updated my main contact info, but I had never scrubbed the recovery options on some of the older, foundational databases, the ones that credit bureaus sometimes cross-reference for identity verification. They were using the keys I had given them a decade ago. I turned back to my laptop. I needed to dig deeper. If they had this loan application ready to go, what else had they signed my name to? I opened my email archive. I searched for keywords. DocuSign, agreement, authorized, signed. Hundreds of results popped up. Most were my own leases, job offers, and insurance forms. But I scrolled back to 2022, back to 2020. And then I saw it. An email from a car dealership 3 years ago. Subject, copy of lease agreement. Brielle Harris. I frowned. Why was I CC'd on Brielle's car lease? I opened the attachment. It was a standard lease agreement for the luxury SUV Brielle drove. I scrolled down to the signature page. There was Brielle's signature, large and looping, and right below it, on the line labeled cosigner, was a signature that made the room spin. Nora Harris. I zoomed in. It looked like my signature. It had the same slant, the same N, but the R was too sharp. I looped my R's. I have looped my R's since the 3rd grade. This R was a jagged peak, and the date next to the signature? August 12th, 2023. I checked my calendar archive. On August 12th, 2023, I was at a mandatory corporate retreat in the mountains. I had no internet access for 3 days. I couldn't have signed this digitally or physically. My mother had signed it. She had forged my signature to get Brielle a car, and for 3 years, they had been paying the lease, and I had never known because they kept the payments current. But now, with their money running out, that lease was a ticking time bomb attached to my credit report. I felt a wave of nausea, followed immediately by a surge of adrenaline. This wasn't just a family drama anymore. This wasn't just about a graduation or a dinner. This was a crime. They had been using me as a financial ghost for years. I was their safety net, their silent partner, their victim. And tonight, by trying to take out that loan, they had inadvertently forced me to turn on the light and see the cockroaches scattering in the corners. I saved the PDF. I saved the metadata. I created a new folder on my hard drive labeled evidence_forgery. I looked at the clock. It was 3:15 in the morning. I was not going to sleep. I was going to draft the end of their world. They wanted a signature? I would give them one, but it would be on a cease and desist order, not a loan application. I did not call the police. I did not scream. I did not drive back to their house and throw the forged lease agreement on their dining table. Anger is a volatile fuel. It burns hot and fast, but it leaves you empty. I needed something colder. I needed strategy. If I sued them now, it would be messy. It would drag on for months, maybe years. They would play the victim, cry to the extended family, and paint me as the ungrateful daughter attacking her own blood. No, I needed them to dismantle themselves. I needed to cut the strings they were using to manipulate me, one by one, until they collapsed under their own weight. I started at dawn. First, I went digital dark. I logged into every single financial institution, utility provider, and government portal I had ever used. I changed passwords to randomized strings of alphanumeric chaos. I enabled hardware security keys where possible, meaning no one could log in without physically plugging a USB stick into the device, a stick that was currently in my pocket. I removed my mother's backup email from 3 old accounts I hadn't touched since college. I updated my security questions. What is your mother's maiden name? Became, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? What is the name of your first pet? Became blueberry pancakes. By 8 in the morning, I was a digital fortress. Next, I drafted the letter. It wasn't a personal email. It was a formal notice, written in the dry. Terrifying language of corporate compliance. To Gerald and Linda Harris. Subject: Notice of revocation of authorization, effective immediately. All prior authorizations, whether verbal or implied, granting you access to my financial records, accounts, or personal data are hereby revoked. Any future attempt to access these accounts will be treated as unauthorized and reported to the relevant authorities. Please confirm receipt of this notice. I sent it. I also sent a physical copy via certified mail, requiring a signature upon delivery. They would have to sign for the very document that legally barred them from my life. Then, I turned my attention to Brielle. The loan application and the forged lease were symptoms. The disease was Brielle's empire. I needed to understand exactly how deep the rot went, and the best way to get information from a narcissist is to appeal to their ego. I composed a new email to Brielle. I kept the tone professional, detached, but helpful. Hey Brielle, I have been thinking about your venue issue. Before I can make a final decision on the co-signing, I need to run a proper risk assessment. It is what I do for a living now. After all, if you want me to put my name on this, I need to see the full business plan for the launch, not just the venue contract, but the projections, the vendor list, and the current P&L statement. Treat me like an investor. Show me why this is a good bet. Then I sent it. I expected her to hesitate. I expected her to hide things. But I underestimated her desperation and her arrogance. She didn't see me as a threat. She saw me as a wallet that just needed a little coaxing. 20 minutes later, my inbox pinged. Finally, you are taking this seriously. Here is everything. It is going to be huge. Nora, trust me. Attached was a zip file labeled Brielle_launch_final_V3. I opened it. It was a disaster. I spent the next 4 hours dissecting it. I built a spreadsheet. I cross-referenced her projected revenue with actual industry standards. She was overestimating by 300%. I looked at her operating expenses and found that 40% of her budget was allocated to personal branding, which meant clothes, hair, and travel for herself, not the business. But the real smoking gun was in the liabilities tab she had foolishly included. She had listed 3 maxed-out credit cards, a personal loan with an interest rate of 28%, and most damning of all, a pending status on the venue contract with a note. Requires guarantor with 750-plus score to cure default. Cure default. She wasn't just trying to book the space. She had already booked it, failed to pay the deposit, and was now in breach of contract. The guarantor wasn't for the future. It was to pay for the past. And the moment I signed, I would be liable for the entire overdue amount, plus the penalties, which were conveniently hidden in the fine print of the vendor agreement she had included. I sat back, looking at the spreadsheet. It was a map of a sinking ship. If I signed, I would be the only person with a life vest. and they would all cling to me until we all drowned. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt clarity. I opened a new document. I titled it, Risk Assessment, Harris Project. I wrote, I didn't use emotional language. I didn't use adjectives like greedy or irresponsible. I used math. Section 1. Solvency Analysis. The entity, Brielle Harris Personal Brand, currently holds a debt-to-income ratio of 4-to-1. This is technically insolvent. Section 2. Contractual Liability. The proposed guarantee agreement contains a cross-default clause. Section 14.b. This means that a default on the venue contract triggers immediate repayment of all other associated debts, totaling approximately $45,000. Section 3. Conclusion. Based on the provided data, the probability of default within 90 days is 95%. As such, no prudent guarantor would accept this risk without full collateral, which the principal does not possess. It was 5 pages long. It was brutal. It was undeniable. I saved it as a PDF. I didn't send it yet. I sent a text to the family group chat. I have finished my review of the documents. I have made my decision. I want to present my findings to everyone in person, so there is no miscommunication. Come to my apartment on Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. My phone buzzed immediately. Dad, can't you just tell us now? We are on a timeline here. Mom, Saturday is fine. Honey, we will bring brunch. Brielle, does this mean yes? Please tell me it means yes. I need to tell the vendor. I looked at the messages. They were still operating in a world where they were in control. They thought Saturday was going to be a celebration. They thought they were coming over to pick up a check. See you Saturday, I replied. I closed my laptop. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across my living room. I felt tired, bone-deep tired, but I also felt lighter. The weight of their expectations, the weight of their judgment, the weight of their needs, it was all still there, but I wasn't carrying it anymore. I had put it down on paper. I had turned it into data. And on Saturday, I was going to hand it back to them. The psychological siege began on Wednesday morning, 3 days before our scheduled Saturday meeting. It started with a vibration on my wrist, a notification from a cousin I hadn't spoken to since Christmas 2 years ago. I heard what's happening. How can you be so selfish? Your sister is crying her eyes out. Then came an email from my Aunt Linda, my mother's older sister, the self-appointed matriarch of the family. The subject line was simply, disappointment. The body was a wall of text about duty, blood, and the sacrifices my parents had made to raise me. She listed the piano lessons I took when I was 8. She listed the braces I wore when I was 12. She tallied up every dollar spent on my childhood as if it were a debt I'd signed a contract to repay, and the interest was now due, in the form of my financial ruin. I didn't reply with anger. I didn't defend myself. I did not explain that I had paid for my own college, or that I was currently driving a car with 100,000 miles on it while Brielle drove a luxury SUV. I had created a template response, saved in my drafts. Please direct all inquiries regarding this financial matter to my email. I am handling this professionally. I copied, pasted, and sent it to Aunt Linda. I sent it to my cousin. I sent it to the 3 other relatives who decided to weigh in on a situation they knew nothing about. I became a broken record. I became a wall. By Thursday afternoon, Brielle escalated the war to the public square. I was at work, organizing files for a client. When my phone started lighting up with notifications from Instagram, I had muted Brielle, but mutual friends were tagging me. I opened the app. There, at the top of the feed, was a black and white photo of Brielle looking out a rainy window. The caption was a masterpiece of vague victimhood. It hurts the most when the people who are supposed to support your dreams turn into your biggest obstacles. Some people are so obsessed with their own stability that they enjoy watching others fall. I guess blood is not thicker than a bank account. Betrayal family drama. Entrepreneur struggles. It did not name me, but it did not have to. The comments section was already filling up with sympathy hearts and angry emojis from our extended family and her followers. Stay strong. Babe, karma will get them. You don't need toxic people in your life. I was the toxic one. I was the villain because I refused to set myself on fire to keep her warm. I felt a sting behind my eyes, the old urge to cry, to call her and beg her to take it down, to promise her anything just to stop the public shaming. But I looked at the folder on my desk, the risk assessment I had written the night before. She wanted to play games with public opinion? Fine, I would play with reality. I opened my email client. I attached the PDF titled Project_Viability_and_Insolvency_Report. I wrote a short message to Brielle. Brielle, regarding your post, I am not your obstacle. The math is your obstacle. I have analyzed the documents you sent. Please read the attached report carefully before Saturday. It outlines exactly why your current business model guarantees default within 90 days. Regardless of who signs for you, I clicked send without blinking. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my father. I let it ring 3 times before answering. I put it on speaker and set it on the table, keeping my hands free, as if I were taking a business call. Nora, he said. His voice was low, shaking with a rage I had rarely heard. It wasn't the loud, blustering anger of my childhood. It was something sharper. What did you just send to your sister? A risk analysis, I said calmly. She sent me her business plan. I reviewed it. I thought she would appreciate the professional feedback. Feedback? He shouted, the volume spiking. You sent her a 5-page document telling her she is going to fail. She is hysterical. She is in the bathroom throwing up because you told her she is insolvent. She is insolvent. Dad, I said. Her liabilities exceed her assets by $40,000. If she signs that venue contract, she will be bankrupt by August. I am trying to save her from a lawsuit, not ruin her dream. You are cold, he spat. You are a cold, calculated little robot. You think you are so smart with your numbers and your spreadsheets. You think you are better than us because you have a corporate job and a savings account. I don't think I am better, I said. I think I'm careful. You are ungrateful, he roared. We raised you. We put food in your mouth. And now, when we need one thing, one simple signature, you act like we are criminals. You tried to take out a loan in my name without my permission, I said. That is criminal. Dad? Silence. We were going to pay it back, he muttered. You don't understand the pressure we are under. Then tell me, I said. Tell me why it is so urgent. Why are you so desperate to cover a $20,000 hole for a party? Why not just cancel the event? We can't, he snapped. It is complicated. Just be here Saturday, and bring your pen, or don't bother coming at all. He hung up. I sat there, listening to the dial tone. It is complicated. That was the phrase people used when they were hiding the body. I needed to know what complicated meant. I thought about who might know. My parents were private people, but they had shared their financial life with one person for 20 years, Mr. Henderson, their insurance broker and old family friend. He was a kind, chatty man who had handled their home and auto policies since I was a baby. I knew it was a long shot. I knew he couldn't give me details legally, but I also knew he had a soft spot for me. I called his office. Mr. Henderson, it is Nora Harris. Nora, he sounded delighted. I saw your graduation photos online. I saw the ones your friends posted. Congratulations. I was surprised I didn't see your folks there. Thanks, I said. Actually, that is why I am calling. I am worried about them. Mr. Henderson, they seem stressed. They are making some frantic financial moves for Brielle, and I am scared they are getting in over their heads. Ah, he sighed. The tone of his voice dropped. It was the sound of a man who knew too much. Listen, Nora, I can't discuss their policies. You know that. I know, I said. I am not asking for numbers. They are asking me to sign something, a guarantee, and I need to know if they have a safety net if things go wrong. Do they still have the equity in the house? There was a long pause on the line. I could hear him tapping a pen against his desk. "Nora," he said carefully, "hypothetically speaking, if a client were to take out a high-risk private loan 6 months ago to fund a business venture, say, a cosmetic line launch, and they used their primary residence as collateral, that equity would be gone." My heart stopped. "A private loan?" I whispered. "Like a second mortgage?" "More aggressive than that," he said. "Hard money, high interest, if they miss payments. The foreclosure process isn't slow like a bank. It is fast." "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," I said. "That is all I needed." I hung up, and the room seemed to tilt. It wasn't just Brielle's reputation on the line. It wasn't just a party. My parents had leveraged their house, the house I grew up in, the house they had almost paid off, to fund Brielle's delusions of stardom, and now the bill was coming due. The urgency wasn't about the venue. It was about the fact that if Brielle's launch didn't happen, if she didn't get that brand deal money to pay the loan sharks, they would lose everything. They were drowning, and they had reached out to grab me, not to save themselves, but to pull me under so my body could serve as a raft for Brielle. They needed my credit score to get a new loan or a new lease to pay off the old one. They were robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I was Peter. I stood up and walked to the window. The city lights were blurring below me. I finally understood the stakes. If I said no on Saturday, they would likely lose the house. They would be financially ruined. But if I said yes, we would all be ruined, because Brielle's business was a black hole that no amount of money could fill. I turned back to my desk. I had work to do. I spent Friday night preparing for the meeting. I did not treat it like a family gathering. I treated it like a courtroom showdown. I printed the audit trail from Secure Life. I printed the fraudulent loan application attempt. I printed the forged car lease with my signature that wasn't mine. I printed the insolvency report for Brielle's company. I printed the chat logs where they gaslit me. I arranged them in a binder, tabbed, color-coded, irrefutable. I created a timeline on a legal pad. August 2023. Forged lease. February 2026. Attempted retirement theft. February 2026. Attempted identity fraud. I looked at the stack of evidence. It was a heavy physical representation of their love for me. It was a love that consumed, a love that took without asking. Saturday morning arrived with a gray, steel-colored sky. I dressed in a suit, not the jeans I wore to dinner. I wore my interview suit. Navy blue, sharp lines, commanding. I made coffee. I set 4 places at my small dining table. No food, just water glasses and coasters. I walked over to the wall where I had hung my diploma the night before. It was still in its simple black frame. Nora Harris, magna cum laude. I touched the glass. I had worked 4 years for that piece of paper. I had scrubbed floors, served coffee, and stayed up until 3 a.m. studying while Brielle was at parties. I had earned my name, and I was not going to let them turn my name into a bad debt. "Hate me if you want," I whispered to the empty room. I straightened the frame. "Today I graduate for the 2nd time," I said aloud, my voice steady in the silence. "I am graduating from the role of victim." The doorbell rang. They were here. The doorbell rang at exactly 10 o'clock. Punctuality was easy when you were desperate for money. I opened the door. My parents and Brielle stood there, looking like a warped version of the family I had always wanted. They were smiling. My mother was holding a box of pastries from a bakery she usually claimed was too expensive. My father was holding a folder of his own, presumably the cleaned-up version of the contracts. Brielle just looked anxious, her eyes darting past me into the apartment as if looking for the checkbook. "Come in," I said. They filed in, the air filling with their perfume and cologne, scents that used to smell like safety but now smelled like deception. They sat at the small dining table where I had set out the water glasses. They looked out of place in my modest apartment, like peacocks in a library. "Well," Dad said, clapping his hands together as he sat at the head of the table. He placed his folder down with a heavy thud. "This is nice. Nora, very organized. I'm glad you came to your senses. We are family. We fight. We argue. But in the end, we sign on the line for each other. He slid a pen across the table toward me. It was a nice pen. A heavy Mont Blanc he had owned for years. He thought the weight of the pen would make the debt feel prestigious. I did not pick it up. Instead, I reached under the table and pulled out my own binder. It was 3 inches thick. I placed it on the table. The sound was not a thud. It was a slap. "We are not signing anything yet," I said. My voice was steady, devoid of the tremor that used to plague me when I confronted them. "First, we are going to answer a question." "Nora, please," Mom sighed, reaching for a pastry. "Let's not do the drama today. Brielle is on a deadline." "The question," I continued, ignoring her, "is simple. Who logged into my Secure Life account on Saturday afternoon at 4:30 while I was walking across the graduation stage?" The room went still. Dad looked at Mom. Mom looked at her fingernails. "We went over this," Dad said, his voice tightening. "It was a glitch, or maybe you logged in and forgot. Stress does that." I opened the binder to the first tab. I pulled out a sheet of paper. It was the audit trail from the insurance company. Blown up to 200% magnification. "This is the IP address," I said, pointing to the string of numbers. "It matches the residential gateway for your house in Oak Creek, and this," I pointed to the next line, "is the device ID. It is the Dell desktop in the den, the one you told me was broken last month." "So?" Mom said, her voice rising in pitch. "Maybe we checked something. We have had your passwords for years. We were just looking out for you." "You weren't looking," I said. "You were changing." I flipped the page. "This is the change request log. Someone attempted to change the primary beneficiary from estate to Brielle Harris, and when the system asked for 2-step verification, it sent a code to a recovery number." I looked directly at my mother. "The number ended in 8842. That is your cell phone." "Mom." The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of a vacuum sealing shut. Then, a small voice broke it. "You did what?" It was Brielle. She was staring at Mom, her mouth slightly open. "You tried to take her retirement fund?" Brielle asked. "You told me you were getting a bridge loan from a private investor. You didn't tell me you were stealing from Nora." "We were borrowing it," Mom snapped, slamming her hand on the table. "We were going to put it back. You needed the money. Brielle, we did it for you." "I didn't ask you to steal," Brielle shouted. "I asked for help. If people find out you committed fraud to fund my launch, my brand is dead. I am not an accomplice to this." The twist hung in the air. Even Brielle, in all her selfishness, had boundaries, or perhaps she just had a stronger sense of self-preservation. Either way, the united front my parents had built was crumbling. "It doesn't matter now," Dad interrupted, his face red. "It didn't go through, no harm, no foul. Nora stopped it. Now, can we please focus on the venue contract? If we don't sign today, we lose the deposit." "There is no deposit to lose," I said. I flipped to the next section of the binder. I pulled out the insolvency report. "I ran the numbers on Brielle's business," I said, looking at my sister. "You are not just missing a deposit. You are $40,000 in debt. You have 3 maxed-out credit cards and a personal loan with a predatory interest rate. Even if I sign this guarantee, you will default in 3 months, and when you do, they will come for me." I looked at my father. "And Mr. Henderson told me about the second mortgage on the house." My father went pale. The bluster drained out of him instantly. He slumped in his chair, suddenly looking very old. "You know?" he whispered. "I know," I said. "I know you are broke. I know you are desperate. And I know that you were willing to sacrifice my credit, my savings, and my future to plug a hole that is too big to fill." "We had to try," Mom sobbed. It was a real sob this time, ugly and raw. "We couldn't let her fail. She is special. Nora, she needs us." I needed you too, I said softly. The words hung there. They didn't deny it. They couldn't. I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. Here is what is going to happen, I said. I am not signing the guarantee. I am not investing in the company. I am not giving you a single cent. Nora, please, Dad begged, his hands shaking. We will lose the house. Then you lose the house, I said. You can downsize. You can rent. People do it every day. But you cannot use me as your life raft anymore. I reached into the binder and pulled out one final document. It was a single sheet of paper. This, I said, sliding it toward them, is an affidavit of unauthorized access. It states that you accessed my accounts without permission and attempted to secure funds fraudulently. It also states that you forged my signature on Brielle's car lease in 2023. You want us to go to jail? Mom gasped. No, I said. I want you to be honest. I am not filing this with the police today, but I am keeping it. And if you ever try to use my name, my social security number, or my credit again, I will walk this paper into the nearest precinct and I will press charges. I looked at them, one by one. I want you to send me an email, right now, from your phones. I want you to reply to my previous email and admit that you tried to access the account and that you will never do it again. A written confession. That is the price of my silence. They stared at me. They were waiting for me to crack. They were waiting for the dutiful daughter to apologize and say she was joking. But I just stood there, waiting, slowly, painfully. My father pulled out his phone, then my mother. They typed in silence. A moment later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Then again, I checked the screen. The emails were there. Brief, humiliating, and legally binding. We are done, I said. Nora, Brielle said, standing up. She looked small without her social media filter. What am I supposed to do? File for bankruptcy for the LLC, I said. It will wipe the business debt. Your credit will be hit for 7 years. But you are young. You can rebuild. But you have to get a job. Brielle, a real one. A job? She repeated the word like it was foreign. Yes, I said. It is how the rest of us survive. I walked to the door and opened it wide. The hallway outside was bright and empty. You should go, I said. They stood up. My father didn't look at me. My mother tried to catch my eye, maybe to guilt me one last time. But I looked through her. Brielle walked out first, already typing on her phone, probably spinning a new narrative for her followers. When they were all out in the hall, I put my hand on the doorknob. You missed the day I walked across the stage, I said. They turned back to look at me. But don't worry. Today I walked past something much harder. I walked past the illusion that I have to save you to be loved. I closed the door. I locked the deadbolt. Click. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door and exhaled. I waited for the tears, but they didn't come. Instead, I felt a strange, bubbling sensation in my chest. It was relief. It was oxygen. I turned around and looked at my apartment. It was quiet. It was mine. 10 minutes later, there was another knock at the door, a rhythmic, friendly knock, shaven a haircut. I clicked it open. Sarah and Mike were standing there. Sarah was holding 2 large pizzas. Mike was holding a bottle of cheap champagne and a pack of plastic cups. We heard the summit was over, Sarah said, grinning. Is the hostage safe? The hostage is free, I said, smiling. And this time, the smile reached my eyes. We sat on the floor of my living room, eating pepperoni pizza and drinking wine out of red Solo cups. We didn't talk about credit scores or liabilities. We talked about movies. We talked about bad dates. We laughed until my sides hurt. I looked up at the diploma on the wall. The sun was setting, casting a golden light across the glass. I raised my plastic cup to it. I had lost a family that saw me as a resource, but I had found a life that saw me as a person, and that was a trade I would make every single time. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from today? Let me know in the comments below. And please subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories. Like this video, and hit the notification bell so we can share this journey with even more people.